Across Texas, the issue is.
I'm Rudy Koski in Austin.
I'm Greg Grugan in Houston.
And I'm Stephen Dial in Dallas. And this is Texas, the issue is.
What to do with the multi-billion-dollar budget surplus is one of the big questions of this session. Republican leaders have spent a lot of time focused on competing plans to use the extra money to provide property tax relief as well as pay raises for teachers and retirees. Representative James Talarico, a Round Rock Democrat, is pitching a more direct idea. He has a package of bills described as inflation relief that would pause the collection of several state-related fees for a year. Now, this moratorium would be on tolls, vehicle registration and inspections, as well as creating another sales tax holiday in January for household goods. Here is his pitch for relief.
This is trying to provide immediate relief to working families in our community. Folks are feeling the pinch of global inflation. Unfortunately, the legislature has limited tools to address global inflation, but what we can do is provide immediate relief to those working families.
These toll authorities have obligations. How do you expect them to pay when you do the pause?
So my bill would use a little bit of the historic budget surplus that we have here in Texas to keep TxDOT whole. So we wouldn't be sacrificing transportation funding levels. All we'd be doing is letting working families off the hook for paying these fees for the next year.
How much is this going to cost? Have you done any kind of estimates?
I've calculated about 1% of the budget surplus could be used to provide this one-year pause in toll fees.
This inflation break isn't limited to toll roads. You have other ideas in doing a pause.
I've put together a package of bills that would help provide inflation relief to working people across the state of Texas. So pausing toll roads for 1 year, pausing vehicle registration fees for 1 year, and then creating a sales tax holiday at the beginning of the year that folks can go out and buy household items tax-free.
Hardworking Texans produced the largest budget surplus in Texas history. That money belongs to you, the taxpayers.
When you have this kind of money, you got to get it back to the taxpayers.
I hear the lieutenant governor, I hear the governor and other Republicans say this is about giving the money back. This is about giving the money back.
That's exactly right, in the most direct way possible. You know, I don't want to see tax breaks for wealthy corporations or wealthy individuals. I want to see relief for working people in our state. And oftentimes they get the shaft here in the Capitol. My bill is about providing relief directly to them.
Do you want this to be a one and done thing, or do you see this as a recurring opportunity? Or do you think this could be something that maybe we revisit over time?
I think it's a great way, whether it's the toll pause, whether it's the vehicle registration pause, or whether it's the sales tax holiday. These should be ongoing efforts to provide some relief for working people across the state who are facing rising cost of living in every community around Texas.
Are you getting any buzz, any traction in the House side, and what about the Senate?
I mean, I think there's bipartisan support for this kind of approach. I think we just got to make it a priority, and that's why folks need to call their state reps, their state senators, and tell them we need inflation relief now.
Well, time now for the Texas Trio to ante up and give a word for what we just heard. My word? Well, my word is antacid. Greg, what's your word?
Freebies, Rudy.
Stephen, what is your word?
My word was giveaway. It's kind of like freebies, so I'm sorry.
That's great. That's great. Well, with that, the Texas Trio will also take our own pause, but we will be back in a few moments to talk about the Talarico Inflation Relief Plan. The Texas Trio is back. My word earlier was antacid. For two reasons: the financial indigestion that inflation has caused everyone, and the gut-wrenching excuses I think Republican leaders will have to make for not letting these ideas at least get a floor debate. Stephen, the Talarico inflation relief bills, HB 4231, 4243, and 4425 for those who are counting, I think could provide Republicans a little bit of cover if their property tax plan fails to pass this session or fails to deliver later. Do you agree with that?
Republicans are really pushing property tax, whether you agree with it or not, from the sense of who will it impact. They really want to push that and pass that so they can have a feather in the hat, in the cap, to say, look what we did in the session. Now, all signs look like we're going to a special session when it comes to property tax. To answer your question, I don't think Republicans are, whether it's a good idea or not, I don't think they want to say that they passed a Democrat-sponsored, Democrat-authored bill to provide relief to Texans. So maybe they'll pick off a couple of those maybe items, but I don't think this will just be that thing that they'll say, look what we did, and it's authored by a Democrat.
Granted, you're right. It is an us versus them type scenario underneath that pink dome. Greg, there was a recent story about the high cost of driving on toll roads in the Houston area. Woof. You know, a pause would certainly give some relief there, but do you think leaders in the Houston area could also use that time to do some comprehensive toll authority audits? And we were talking earlier, you don't think that this is going to convince anyone in West Texas either, right?
That's right, Rudy. Democrats are in charge of Harris County and have caught some criticism for diverting toll road revenue to so-called transportation projects like biking and hiking trails, which have little to do with improving mass mobility in the traditional sense. I tend to doubt Talarico's measure, if it somehow passed, would trigger any deeper than usual dive into operations or finance. That said, Harris County commissioners have already reduced tolls 10% as relief for inflation, saving Houston area drivers roughly $86 million a year. So the question becomes, is more relief really needed? And if so, is a toll holiday the best vehicle to provide, given so many rural Texans would get little or no benefit?
Yeah, but people, you know, toll roads, that's a four-letter word just, you know, universally. I just think that once you say we're going to do something with tolls, people will love the fact, whether or not it means anything. I think the fact that, you know, they like that idea. Stephen, the cost is probably, you know, it's probably not a spending cap buster here at the Capitol, but this proposed September to September pause is coming on the heels of the summer gas spike that's going to happen. So is it good timing? Do you think people will respond to this call for a grassroots push? Or do you think people in North Texas are just more focused on the culture wars that are going on down here in Austin under the Capitol Dome?
I think if the public is informed about what it is, I think if you surveyed people, yeah, there will probably be majority support in Texas, because look at where the areas of the large populations are in the state. They're areas where people have to pay tolls, or you try to spend a longer time in traffic on the non-toll roads. So if you took a poll statewide, yeah, it'll probably have a favorability that is, to Talarico's point, but it depends on who's voting, right? And Greg talking about rural Republicans, rural Texans who don't have these tolls, and so they'll say this doesn't benefit me. So it really depends on who you're asking.
Greg, before the last election, you know, we thought that the economy would cause a red tsunami, and of course that didn't happen. Do you think Talarico's inflation relief idea would get lost this session by all the partisan fighting prepping for 2024? You know, the House bill will have to reach the floor by early May too, so there's not much time left to get it done. So does it get lost?
Look, Rudy, if I were a betting man, I would wager against Talarico's relief bill making it to the governor's desk. Obviously, he's a Democrat in the minority, and I just don't see Republican budget writers making room for this kind of temporary subsidy. When they are delivering roughly $16 billion in property tax relief, they say is permanent. Now, of course, the folks likely to get shortchanged in that deal are the 39% of Texans who pay rent. I think it's pretty clear Republicans are funneling the lion's share of relief to homeowners because homeowners tend to be older, and more importantly, homeowners tend to be voters.
Yeah, but Greg, geez, the appraisal numbers are coming out, and people are once again getting sticker shock with that. You know, I just don't know if people are going to believe that this property tax plan, whichever it is going to work. Stephen, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, we've had multiple conversations about this. The property tax plan, you talked about the appraisals with the counties and talked about everyone, Greg mentioned the stats of everyone's not a property owner. And so it really depends on who's the voter. Who are these Republican leaders trying to cater to? Greg laid out all the stats. More people who may be property owners may lean to go to the polls every time there's an election versus those who may just complain on social media. But it really breaks down to how much impact is this really going to have? And, you know, you kind of heard the statements from Speaker Dave Phelan kind of quiet a little when he talked about giving money back to taxpayers through roads. And so we'll have to just wait and see how this fight plays out.
All right, and like I said, there's not much time to get this legislation through. We'll just have to see how it plays out. To see this interview or any of our other past interviews, go to our station's YouTube page.
And continue the conversation with us on social media.
The fights continue to heat up in the Texas legislature, inside the parties and across party lines. We'll talk about that when you join us next Sunday for Texas The Issue Is. And remember to let us know what you think the issue is.